Thank you for helping us see out the day. We appreciate it. My name is George Robson. I'm a partner at Sequoia. I'm very grateful to be able to introduce Felix, co-founder, COO at Pennylane. We've been in business with these guys for many years now. We're going to share some learnings and perspectives from the last few years of the chapter of the company. So Felix, welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're happy to be here.
In your city. So we've had an office in Europe for about 5 years as Sequoia. We partner with companies across stages. There aren't many businesses we work with where there are 7 co-founders, right, that we come into into working with. I think it's worth just telling a little bit about maybe your story, a little bit about the Pennylane founding story, and a little bit about how 7 guys who didn't really come from the accounting world tried to build domain expertise, right, to go after this market.
Yeah, sure. So I'll do. I don't think we have much time, so I'll do the quick version. The origin story is really the first company we built that was called Price Match, and that was doing pricing optimization. And basically, we were doing a lot of complex math all day. And at the end of the day, just to make sure we were getting paid, we were doing very basic addition and subtraction to make sure to reconcile our invoice. And it's in a bit odd, the disconnect with what technology able you to do, and the fact that the most basic math you have to do in your business is still unautomated. Fast forward 10 years later, Price Match has been acquired. We want to start a new company together, and we still have this itch of we should do something around financial management, and we progressively build the conviction that in order to really solve this pain, you need an all-in-one tool. And when I say all-in-one, I mean truly all-in-one, including what we call accounting, which is really end-to-end accounting. So in English, you would say bookkeeping, accounting, tax, which is obviously the hardest to do, and this is why very few people are doing it. And most of all the founders from the first company, we didn't have any background in accounting, which is good because it gives you an outside perspective, but you do need to have this knowledge. So we partnered with our accountant at the time that's now a co-founder at Pennylane, and we did something that's quite crazy, and a lot of people thought we were at the time, which is to build a service industry, to build a pure service play, become an accounting firm, and not directly doing software. I think when you want to build an all-in-one solution, you will always have this question of where do I start, and we decide, okay, we'll start with the hardest nut to crack, which is accounting, and the best way to do it, rather than try to convince large accounting firms to do a proof of concept for years and years and perhaps some sort of feedback, is to directly partner with an accountant, be ourselves accountant, and really feel the pain of the job and understand it, which was a great way to learn the business. And I would say the trick, and we discussed this several times with our investors, is at the end of the day, we knew we wanted to do a software company. That's what we're good at. That's what we like doing. We're not like service company operators. And the question is, when would you do the switch? And it's hard to fine-tune when you have the right signal from the market and you feel ready to launch, but it's still a leap of faith because most of the revenue still comes from the traditional service play, and you still have to really believe in it and migrate to the entire new business, because we had several months where we were managing the two, and you become kind of schizophrenic because the two don't, you need to optimize for different things. So this is one thing I recall from this period. And now it's been more than 4 years that we purely do software for accountants, for SMBs, and got rid of this origin service business.
Yeah, I think you were pretty early advocates of this idea of sort of service as a software, right? Building that level of familiarity with the workflow of these accountants. I think the other thing that has obviously changed since you founded the business is the dawn of AI as we know it. Right, you founded the company just before GPT-3. Maybe talk just a little bit about kind of how you've infused AI into the culture, into the way that you build product since then.
Yeah, so I would say it was very present even before the LLM revolution. If you build an accounting tool, you need a lot of AI for like optical character recognition, which is the piece that would translate an image, an invoice, into structured data, to automate, to do rules-based automation. So I would say from day one, we had a lot of AI, but the way we thought about it was really into automation and into, okay, we're going to map the workflow of an accountant, and this could be automated, and the machine will do a better job. What really changed with LLM is that we saw a way to completely change the way the accountants work, and to build this copilot and not just focus on automating this task, and we've automated whatever 30% of the workflow, and we could incrementally progress, but have a more disruptive approach. And it's something that like internally grew quite organically. I would say people were so, as in many tech companies, people were so excited about the change and the progress and heard about it. We didn't really have to kickstart something, and it really like grew from the company because everybody, when you had the first, I think it's November 2022, everybody rushed and say, oh my God, we need to do something about it. Here are my ideas, and we just had to structure this a bit to control this. But we had a lot of enthusiasm for the team, as I guess in many tech companies, and we just had to manage this to make sure we benefit and we make accountants benefit from the progress of LLMs.
I remember when we were diligencing Pennylane ahead of our first investment, we were speaking to some of your accounting customers, some of the accountants here in France, and they talked about this idea that business owners would come to them with a shoebox full of receipts, right, from the last month. The month would end. They wouldn't necessarily know whether they were how the month was, whether they were still solvent, how the business was going. I think one thing that you've in the team have always been very opinionated about is trying to empower the accountant, right, and put the accountant at the core of that conversation as they advise these SMBs. Maybe talk a little bit about that philosophy of augmenting or being a co-pilot, right, for these different partners.
Yeah, it's something very, I would say, structuring for us. And again, we started focusing mainly on automation, and we progressively shifted to say, okay, we've automated a bunch of stuff, and we're convinced that there's a line, and I don't know where it is precisely, but there's a line where you need a human, and AI does a fantastic job at reading an invoice, but to read in between the line of a business, you need to be an accountant or a CFO. And this is something that's very important for us. We often say internally or tell to our accountant customers, accountants are not going to be replaced by AI. They're going to be replaced by accountants using AI. And this is something that's quite key in the way we build our developments. And yeah, I think this is something really that drove us. And again, instead of focusing on pure automation and trying to identify the different flows and try to automate stuff that are not possible to automate, focus and take the problem through a different lens, through a different angle, and focus on, okay, that's what AI can enable the accountant to do, and perhaps today it's not what people expect from their accountant, and it's not the core job, and the core job tends to be on, the mandatory regulatory stuff, filling the VAT forms. But these tools will help us empower accountants to make sure they become real financial advisors. And perhaps that's not today expectations of some customers because we don't know what's the capabilities. And it's something we've been working a lot on with our assistant to make sure, okay, we're going to automate the tasks so that the accountant focus on more high value added tasks, but also we're going to give him the tools so that he can be even better in these high value added tasks. So I think it's a mix of, we do a bit of, obviously we do automation and so autopilot, but most of the effort is on Copilot.
And maybe, you took the team this pretty high conviction move to clarify that relationship with accountants in your kind of code of commandments that you released last year. Maybe just talk a little bit about that ethos and how that solidifies that relationship.
Yeah, I think it's not a secret for everyone. Our business is really based on this relationship with accountant, and it's kind of a very strong conviction, and it's really one of the fundamental hypotheses of the business is that most companies, not all, some very small companies can do without, and very large companies can internalize, but 95% in between do need the expertise of an accountant in France, in most countries of continental Europe, and you shouldn't try to replace the accountant or bypass the accountant, but you should partner with the accountants and try to empower it. And we did the code of conduct George is mentioning because it was really important for us to really symbolically state this, write this, sign this to make sure to give goodwill also to the accountant. It's a profession that's, targeted. If you read all the McKinsey reports about, the most disrupted job on the upper right quadrant, you always have the lawyers and the accountants. And so you do have this fear of, I'm going to get disrupted. You have this big e-invoicing reform going to France. The space is moving a lot. And you have a lot of players that are pretty aggressive and disruptive and that want to replace or get rid of the accountant. And we can appreciate and understand this fear. So it was really important for us to answer it and to really, very clearly state and restate the commandments that will conduct the business and the commitment we take towards accountants to really materialize the fact that it's a partnership with accountants to provide most values to SMBs and not like a short-term play to replace them. I think that's one of the drawback of the service model is that we used to be a competitor of accountants because we're an accounting firm ourselves, so we still need to make sure it's clear in everybody's mind that it was a step of the past and it's not something we're going to do again, and that we're a pure software player and a software that's built for the accountants and their SMBs.
Yeah, that's well said. So we came back from our board meeting yesterday. I think all of our board meetings, we talk about kind of how AI is being adopted across the organization. It's something that the team actually tracks very diligently. We talk about different tools, et cetera, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about building a sort of AI-first culture inside of the company, and maybe just share a couple of examples with the team of things that are really working and kind of working at the front line?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, we're fortunate to have people that are very, generally, and it's one of our value, people that are very curious and want to try new things, to put it very simply. And AI is obviously a lot of these new things are AI related. So we do have a lot of initiatives. And what we do, and to be honest, I don't think we have a silver bullet. We've completely cracked this. But we just try to set up a framework where we set expectations and we tell our people, we tell Pennylane, okay, we expect you, whatever your job is, to work with AI, and we think it's good for the company, it's good for you. Whatever you do in the future, you're going to build skills that are going to be useful, and it's going to help us, I mean, not only be more productive, but also understand the position of the accountant, where you have to manage this, like new tools and new technology. So that's the expectation, but we're not giving the playbook or, oh, you're a salespeople, you should use these tools to write sequences of email, and you should use this recording tool or whatever. We try to be quite bottom up. Obviously, we have some rules and guidelines for security reasons, and we don't want it to be too chaotic. And perhaps the one thing we're working on, and we need to be a better job on, is to answer your last point, is to really be better at showcasing what's really working and do a better job of saying, okay, in this department, you have like salespeople are pretty cutting edge when it comes to doing it. You're working talent acquisition. It's not such a different job. It's about, it's a funnel you need to optimize. You have the same, you use different tools, and this is how you could replicate. And this is something we've been perhaps lacking a bit, but we're working on. All the use case we have, the one that's the most striking, and I don't think it would be a surprise, but it's when it comes to customer support. What might be more surprising is the average ticket we get are pretty complex because the scope of the product is super wide. And so our customer support staff, they're often trained accountants. And when we started to outsource part of our tickets, most of the BPO companies didn't want to work with us because they were saying, no, this is too complex. You're not able to tell me, 80% of my tickets are, I forgot my password, how do I reset it? You cannot do 80-20. These are automatically the first question asked is something you need 3 years of accounting background to be able just to understand the question. And we've been quite successful in this and pleasantly surprised by the progress. But all teams use it. I cannot think of a single team, from legal to HR. Even the team you couldn't think of power user of AI really use it, and it's super effective.
I want to pick up on actually that last point. I think some companies, there's this tension when they think about recruiting between having people that have domain expertise, right, in the sector in which they're building, and obviously functional expertise to realize whatever it is they're building. Obviously, in accounting, you often need both. I think maybe just talk a little bit about the balance when you think about recruiting. Is it easier to hire someone who has the functional expertise and teach them accounting? And maybe just a little bit about the product management org you've built, because a lot of them have actually domain expertise in both of those areas. So maybe talk about it.
So you probably don't know this in the room, but recruiting an accountant in France is really hard. There's a lot of, it's even worse than AI engineers. You have a lot of scarcity on the market. So you don't have that many great technical talents that are great at accounting. If you know them, just reach out to me. I'd be happy.
Open invitation.
But all jokes aside, you will not have people that will tick all the boxes from day one. And I think obviously it depends on the job, and on some jobs, obviously for engineers, you want people with a good mastery of the technology we use versus an accounting background. Accounting will just be the cherry on the top, and vice versa for support. You want people that have the good, caring abilities, but mainly an accounting background, and you will teach them sales or customer support. But overall, across all functions, we're really looking. I was talking about this curiosity mindset, and I think that's really important. And it's also a challenge when you work in accounting, which is, I'm not going to lie, not the sexiest topic ever. But it's also a good filter because some people want to do gaming or social because it looks more exciting. And we really look for people that can see the interest in accounting, even if it may seem boring. And I was thinking it was very boring before like being stuck into it because they see the intellectual challenge behind it and they see the impact it can have on like literally millions of entrepreneurs. And I think that's something that's really important. Uh, Obviously, I'm just stating the obvious, but hardworking, ambitious, raw intelligence will help these people to make sure they will like build the skills or the knowledge they lack to be very good at what they do. And it's good to have a good mix. So like product management is a good example where we have like the cliche of the PM working in a Parisian startup that ticks all the boxes of what you can imagine of what it looks like. And we also have chartered accountants that work in traditional accounting firms that did like PM bootcamp and are surrounded by more like people that have been to like the best in class PM companies and that know the playbooks and that learn the job of being a PM and that they can combine the two skills. And I think you really need a good balance of both to make sure they can like combine effectively.
So obviously we're here in Paris for this wonderful event. France, as we know, is one of the pillars of AI here in Europe. Maybe talk a little bit about, when you think about recruiting technical talent or AI expertise into the company, what are some of the emerging skills that you think are really critical to help people succeed at a company like a Pennylane? And where are the gaps, if you just look at the talent market, that people should really be looking to fill?
I feel quite fortunate because there are not that many gaps. Sorry, that's perhaps not the answer you were expecting, but honestly, and something that's changing a lot, and it's not a technical skill, but it's more, I would say, when it comes to technical profile business acumen, where you often have this cliche of, oh, technical people, especially in France or Europe, are very good, very technical, but lack this kind of business vision. I think it evolved very rapidly. And honestly, we're really fortunate with the talent we have access to in France. We recruit all over Europe, and we think it's a great market to be in, recruiting-wise. And that's because we use a lot of AI to recruit, so we're super effective.
Well said. Thank you for bringing it back. That's perfect. Let's talk a little bit about that expansion. I mean, today, going out and building full stack accounting, for a country like France, given the sort of administrative pains that can exist in this region, would be enough for, I think, most entrepreneurs. You guys, do you have ambitions maybe to go across other geographies in the future as well? Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, one of the reasons you don't have a lot of competition on accounting software is that it's very painful to localize. If you do neobank, expense management, even invoicing, you do have some localization costs, but it's fairly straightforward. Accounting is really you have to rebuild. And today, the entire accounting part is most of our R&D effort. It's like 60% of our staff work on this, and it's something you have to not entirely rebuild because in Continental Europe it's the same, I would say the same philosophy, the same mechanism, but you still have to rebuild it a lot. So you do have some costs. One thing, the good and bad thing about the French regulation and tax law is that one, it's very complex, and two, it changes all the time. So you need to architecture it in a way that it's quite easy to adapt because it will change. Even if you just do France, it's going to change every year. So you need to be able to have something like a business rule management system where someone that's a topic expert and not an engineer can really modify the parameters to make sure it's compliant to the new rate or whatever. So once you've built that, it makes it easier to localize, obviously. And since you start in a market with a lot of complexity, you've already built stuff here that you can recycle, and hopefully you should not encounter something completely new. This being said, we've decided we're exploring the German market, which is perhaps the one country in the world where it's even worse than France, because we like complexity. But yeah, you do have these localization costs, but starting in a country, and a lot of people spoke a lot about QuickBooks. That's a massive success, and obviously we have a huge respect for Intuit, but that failed in France. They opened the market, they invested a lot for 5 years, and then closed operations in France, mainly because I would say, to simplify, the American accounting system is way simpler, and it's really complex to, once you have an existing business that's running on your home country and you need to add many layers of complexity, it's harder than taking them off. So that's the way we approach it. This being said, we're very early days of going abroad. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of bad surprises and it will be harder than we expect, but we're ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team with an incredibly high pain threshold that's ready to take on that challenge. I mean, maybe for the entrepreneurs in the audience, just last question, just a thought for like founding a company in 2025, what they should think about.
Honestly, it's a great. Like, I cannot think of a better time to start a company. We started a company. The first company was in 2012. The second one was in 2020, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it should be so hard with COVID." And I was like, "Are you kidding? It's much better than 8 years ago." Like everything, like support for the administration, the tools that are available. Obviously, I'm not here to do a commercial for Pennylane, but tools like Pennylane are all the help you on the admin side of your business, and obviously we're not the only one. So this plus obviously we're all here today, but the technical revolution we're witnessing, it requires a lot of grit, and perhaps it's going to get harder, but the potential is just endless. So I love what I do, but I kind of envy the people that would start from a blank sheet today, because it's really exciting as well.
Amazing. Felix, thank you so much.
Thanks, George.